Greetings, legendary listeners. Welcome to the Marvelous TV Club, a podcast tackling our collective obsession with the latest releases from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. With Falcon and the Winter Soldier wrapped up and Loki on the horizon on June 11th, I thought this would be the perfect time for the Marvelous TV Club's first ever epic crossover event. Tonight, we're going to talk about the MCU TV project to date through what else? Our favorite lenses, characters, themes, and the weird stuff. So everything from WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier is on the table, and so are some forward-looking questions as we gear up for Loki. Between now and the preview episodes for Loki, the Marvelous TV Club will be arriving about once per week, first with this epic crossover event, and then after that with some really fun interviews and conversations. For example, next week, Jesse and I will bring you our interview with Abraham Reisman. He wrote the new Stan Lee biography, True Believer, a book that turns the origin story of the Marvel Universe itself inside out. And that is just the beginning. But that is also all in the future. Tonight, we are performing the most sacred ritual of anything that has to do with comics, the epic crossover. The co-hosts of our Storycast, Charactercast, and PonderVision have united to defeat... boredom, I guess. We don't really have a nemesis yet. Anyway, it is time to introduce our super team. I am your host, Mark Folletti, and with me tonight from PonderVision, it's Latveria's Attorney General, Jesse Taylor. Welcome, Jesse.
I've held more positions in the MCU than any human known to man.
I'm terrified I'm going to run out someday. From Charactercast, it's the viral sensation herself, Christine Kippens. Hi, Christine.
Hello, hello.
From Storycast, the notorious academic known as Dr. A, Maeve Adams. Greetings, Dr. A.
Greetings, friends.
And also from Storycast, the superhero of Salon.com, Amanda Marcotte. How you doing, Amanda?
Good, honey.
I like that. How you doing?
How you doing?
Just get personal with it.
I can only get away with that, I feel like, with her. Yeah, we'll see. Maybe Jesse. All right. So, look, I want to honor this solemn occasion, which you can tell it's already off to a very, serious start, by asking each of you a question. This is a surprise round inspired by none other than Christine herself of Fuck, Marry, Snap.
Oh, yes.
Nobody knew this was coming. So I'm going to give each person their own unique trio of characters, and they must choose whomst they shall fuck, marry, or snap. This is a game about difficult choices, and I literally did spend hours trying to find just the right freaking combos for this thing.
Bless you, Mark.
Some are better than others. There are a couple really difficult ones, so I'm sorry in advance. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask for a volunteer to go first, and you're going to choose a number between 1 and 4, and I will give you your trio.
Mark, before we get started, I'm a little embarrassed to ask this, but could you just maybe clarify the snap part of marry? Because I know what marrying is, I think.
Yeah,
I think I've got that down.
Great point.
Fucking also, I'm pretty clear on. But the snap, you want to just clarify that, please?
It's a good reminder for me as the host to set the rules. So in case you've never heard of the game Fuck, Marry, Kill at all, what happens is you get 3 names and you have to choose one that you would fuck, one that you would marry, and one that you would kill. But because this is the MCU, nobody's gone forever. And also maybe to soften the hard choices that some of you are going to have in the hope that someone will return someday, I went with Snap, which I believe was Christine or Jesse. I don't honestly remember which of you first proposed the Snap modification, but
I think it was Jesse.
I think it might have been Jesse. Yeah,
that
give
makes
Jesse
sense.
credit. On that. And so it's a gentler version of killing, I'm going to go ahead and say, because once again, hope springs eternal. So thank you for that clarification question, Maeve.
That's what I'm here for.
So again, I have 4 trios ready to go and a potential reserve one. Who would like to go first?
I'm not afraid.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Christine,
Yes.
pick a number between 1 and 4.
I'll take my birth month, number 4.
Christine, these are 3 bad people you can't help but root for. Fuck, Marry, Snap, Agatha Harkness, Baron Helmut Zemo, and Loki.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Wow.
All right. So I am definitely marrying Zemo because I'd be a fucking baroness. Like,
Correct.
easy. Easy. I'd be rich.
You get a plane, you get a butler at a bare minimum.
Exactly. Endless supply of Turkish delight. Like, I'm good. I'm good. So Zemo, I'm marrying. Wow. Okay, now this becomes difficult. I have to either fuck or snap Agatha or Loki. And this is where my choice becomes super difficult.
You know they're all good in bed. All of them.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, Agatha's been around for a minute, but here's the thing. You know what? I was thinking about this earlier because I've been thinking about Loki and thinking about actually talking about him on the I'm Gonna Need More Wine podcast and Loki's sexuality. I've actually been thinking about just today. And I believe Loki might actually be asexual. Because I've never seen him make any sort of indication whatsoever towards any alien or humanoid, regardless of where they fall on the gender spectrum. I've never seen him interested in anyone sexually at all, never made a sexual joke, nothing. So because I'm a hedonistic Taurus, Loki, you're getting snapped.
Ouch, yeah.
And I am boning Agatha.
Yes. Good choice.
Those are all outstanding. That's actually would have been my call for all three of those too. You definitely have to tumble with Agatha. I mean, that wink is.
Imagine the spells.
Yeah.
But I'm going to vouch for fucking a shapeshifter.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
But if he's not into it, are you really going to enjoy it? Because I hadn't thought about that. Tom Hiddleston is extremely fuckworthy, and yet his character never really seems to throw
That's a good point. But if he is into sex, like, it's not just threesomes, it's foursomes, it's fivesomes with just him.
He's like clearly the guy who was like voted in high school the most likely to turn out to be an onanist, you know?
But I do feel like if Loki has any plan come to fruition while you're having sex, he's gone.
Totally bounces. Yes. That's correct.
Yeah. Like 2 minutes in, rolls over, checks his phone. He's like, I got something. I'll see you later.
So here's my response to Amanda. Like, at first I was like, oh, this is genius. Of course, I should always come to Amanda before I answer any fucking question ever to find out what the right answer is. Here's the thing, though. I feel like Loki still has too much ego that, like, if you asked him, oh, can we try Captain America tonight? Like, he might get mad. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, another thought I had earlier today was he's got some thin lips. And it's been kind of my experience that men with thin lips are really generous, if you know what I mean. So like,
wow,
they tend to be givers. And I'm like, oh, but Loki as a giver might be nice.
Yeah. Well, especially if he's like, you know, he really cares about how other people see him. Right. So he's definitely going to want to come across as the person you tell the stories about.
Yeah. He's always he's got inadequacy issues next to Thor. So I feel like he'd be super generous. At the same time, though, I feel like Agatha is too much fun to pass up on. So
she's like that dangerous one, right? She's like, ooh, you're a little dangerous. And I want to have sex with you for some reason because you're
girl, tie me to a stake and figure it out. Like,
yeah.
Show me your powers. Yeah.
All right. This is great. I'm already scaling back on my other questions because I want to spend as much time as possible on this segment.
The fuck, marry, kill episode.
Fuck, marry.
Apparently, that's great. If it's nothing else, that's worth it.
But here's the thing, Mark. I actually want you to start a Marvel at Midnight show with you, Amanda, and Jesse. I mean, no offense, Maeve.
Whatever.
I just feel like you guys' voices lend very well to a late night show where all you do is talk about fuck, marry, snap.
That's what it's called. Fuck, marry, snap.
Just dirty Marvel shit. That's really funny. Maybe that'll be like our subscriber only Patreon special or something. If we ever start that up. I love that. Well, look, that's just one of the 4 sets, you guys. Now, 4 is off the table, so we have numbers 1, 2, and 3 available. Who dares to step forward next? Jesse Taylor puts up his hand. All right, Jesse, pick a number between 1 and 3.
You know, I've read a lot of things where if you give people the choice of random numbers between 1 and 10, they will never pick 1. So I'm picking 1.
Jesse, there are 3 genuine heroes between these 2 shows. Fuck, marry, or snap. Sam Wilson, Bucky Barnes, Monica Rambeau.
Oh,
it's the last one that gets you, isn't it? Good luck.
Oh, Man.
Yeah, those first two are easy.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's like a puppy, a kitten, or a puppy kitten. Like, what do you do?
Yeah. But, there's a sexual one in there. So whatever,
Because marrying isn't sexual, Mark.
I always assume that marry means everything about marriage in this game.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I've got it. Fuck Bucky.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Correct.
Marry Monica.
Oh, my God.
Snap Sam.
Correct.
Why?
Correct answer.
So how did
Yeah.
you make the difficult snap decision?
So first, I start off with Mary because Mary is the one that's going to stick with you the rest of your life.
Mhm.
Theoretically. Yeah.
Theoretically.
About half the time.
Yeah. Bucky has issues.
Yes.
Bucky has some serious issues. And
Yes.
also, we don't know how deeply that programming is rooted in him, if it could come out. And if there needed to be a plot point at some point, someone's going to bring out all those words and he's going to be back to being the Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
And, if we got a mortgage, if we've got something else, like I need Bucky there. He cannot run out.
No,
on
he's
me.
not reliable.
I know. Monica, reliable.
Yeah.
Definitely would have sex with her the rest of my life. That's not a problem.
Yep.
And I don't know what all her powers are. You could find some freaky stuff.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bucky, even though I wouldn't marry, we saw those sparks with Sam's sister. There's something there, and he's got something pin up. You could push the right button, and it's just going to be the most memorable night of your life.
Don't you want to see what that super soldier serum does in bed? I mean,
Yeah, kind of.
And that
Stamina
arm,
at the
does
same
it
time.
have a vibrate function?
Yes.
Shit.
He's got to be able to move it real fast. I mean,
I know.
Yeah.
And maybe you do, you're in bed and you just figure out that Wakandan touch and it falls off, and that just adds a little spice.
That's when he's feeling vulnerable, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And Sam, I'm sorry, sweet guy, wonderful, new Captain America, but one, I feel like his head's always going to be elsewhere. It's going to be on the 15 things you just described about his past or Captain America's past or about systemic racism in America. But also, just personality-wise, he is the blandest of the three.
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. And he kind of has the Loki vibe that you're talking about, Christine. Does he
oh no, Sam Wilson fucks. Sam Wilson
Okay, cool.
definitely fucks. But
Yeah.
but you got to be like, Sam, I know you're all about fixing problems. I don't have an orgasm right now. Fix that. But you have to focus him. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like Jesse's right. He's going to be thinking about 5 million different things, but it's nah, brah, focus right here.
Yeah.
Handle this.
Yeah.
But he fucks. Look at that ass. That ass fucks.
Well, the internet believes that Sam and Bucky fuck, frankly.
I mean, I think it's a pity that they didn't.
I flirted with them not being together, but I felt that, it just made sense to
No,
put
it feels
them
good. It feels like a tough
together.
choice. Tough choices they yield fun answers.
All right, Amanda and Maeve, you are left to go. Who's up?
Okay, I'll do it. Let's do it. I'm ready.
All right, Maeve, pick either
Ready.
the number 2 or the number 3.
3.
All right. There are 3 women in this show who manifest their power in very different ways. Fuck, marry, or snap. Wanda Maximoff.
Oh, God, yes.
Sharon Carter.
Oh.
Io.
Oh, boy. I feel like the easiest of all of these to me is the snap.
Spoken like a true villain, Dr. A.
Oh, man.
Everyone else is leading with who they're going to marry, and Dr. A is like, I know who to snap right away.
It's the first, it's essentially the prime mover of all things is who we murder before we, move on to deciding who we live with forever and who we bone today. Sharon, I'm gonna snap. She is a master manipulator. She's out to serve herself. She clearly doesn't care about community or America or anything other than her own ambition. She suffers from hubris. I mean, just the narrative logic alone suggests that she's got to be snapped.
Well, plus when she's gone, you can take her art.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm a get me some of those impressionist paintings, and whatever else she's got locked up there, because it's going to be lovely and valuable. And then I might be able to buy a jet, so it's like kind of like marrying Baron Zemo, you know.
But you kill her and take all her shit. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't say that I was a good person. I have never said that I was a good person. Yeah, so definitely snapping Sharon. Now, this is a tough one. The fuck Mary.
Yeah.
Because one, the Dora Milaje and Io as one of them would feel very committed to the cause of justice and serving her community. And so, you know, again, I need her to be right here with me every now and again. On the other hand, Wanda Maximoff, a troubled woman. Do you really want to carry that around?
Well, I mean, she might trap you in a sitcom.
Yeah, I mean, and again, like, I'm not sure how bad that would be. So yeah, you know what? I think because of the, Bucky conundrum, the problem of a person who carries an enormous amount of emotional baggage, I think I'm going to fuck Wanda Maximoff. She looks cute in that
Scarlet
red
Witch.
Halloween costume, Scarlet Witch costume.
You're not
I
wrong.
mean, woohoo! I'll take it. So gonna fuck Wanda Maximoff, and I'm gonna marry Io.
Yeah. I don't know if Io has a sense of humor, and that concerns me for a marriage situation, but she's reliable as hell, to Jesse's mortgage point.
She burned Bucky pretty good, so I think she does have a sense of humor.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, so she's clear, and she's also clearly a feminist, and I couldn't marry anybody whose politics didn't line up with mine, so yeah.
And I will say with Wanda, you get into an entire issue of whatever your perspective on death is, you're never dead when she's around. It'll be 100 years from now, and your rotting corpse will still be walking right alongside of her.
Jesse, oh my God.
Which I'm actually, I don't know, I'm kind of here for that. I want to live forever.
She also makes you have children with her that are imaginary. It's a whole thing.
That's a whole thing. Yeah, I don't want to have children with her or anybody really, so.
She is the definition of a lot. That's true. That's true. Amanda, this is a hilarious category in many ways for you because I can't think of a category that you would be less interested in. So I look forward to seeing who does it for you. I believe there are 3 strong moral compasses in these 2 series. Amanda, fuck, marry, or snap. The first one is I'm calling Vision parentheses Wanda's version, like Taylor's version. You know how she's recording all her songs and it's like Taylor's version. So the Vision that we get in WandaVision, Jimmy Woo, Sarah Wilson.
That's mean, Mark.
Sam's sister.
That's mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough.
This is a tough one.
Tough trio.
Yeah.
I've got this one. I'm going to marry Vision. Like, I am going to fuck Sarah, and I'm going to snap Jimmy Woo. No shade, Jimmy Woo. You're cool, but also, like, think of it as a magic trick.
Oh, God, you're going to kill him and you're going to make him go out on that note.
I hereby pass the Dr. A moniker along to Amanda Marcotte.
Oh my God, that was amazing.
And my reasoning on the other 2 is very simple. I will fuck Sarah because I don't want to get between her and Bucky. That is meant to be.
Fair.
So one night stand, and then she can move on to her true life partner, Bucky.
That's nice, because I was going to say Sarah's obviously extremely reliable, also clearly makes good lunches for everybody, and I feel like she'd be amazing as a long-term partner, but, Vision is very giving, to Christine's earlier point, I mean,
you talked about moral compasses. I wanted to find mine, even as I'm snapping poor Jimmy.
But like, can you imagine? He has a vibranium penis.
Oh.
Yeah, Vision.
Oh.
First of all, whatever's going on there is clearly good. Second of all, again, shapeshifters.
Again, correct.
Yeah, density.
And, third, he was, he seemed like a pretty good partner. Dad fixed shit, buried dogs, He's in it for the long haul. And he will push back when needed. You need that in a partner. You don't need a doormat.
Yeah, and when you're having a fight, he'll like bring in some really interesting philosophical principle that'll confuse you so much that you'll be like, whatever, I love you. It's fine.
And he's good enough that he's worth enslaving an entire town in New Jersey over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those are all facts. Well, that was supposed to be just the intro, so that was a really good time, you guys. It's almost hard to imagine where to take it from here, but I'll tell you where. And that is
Wait a second.
What?
Mark, do you really think we're going to play Fuck, Marry, Snap and no one's going to give you a Fuck, Marry, Snap?
I see.
Oh, she's writing it down.
I had one in reserve, but are you going to line one up for me?
You don't get to give yourself one.
I mean, I only just came up with this, so I haven't had time to really,
It's going to be great.
Really think. I don't put too much pressure on me, Dr. A. It might not be. So, and I don't have like a whole summary of like, oh, these three people are all connected in this way. Like, no. These are kind of leftovers from folks I haven't heard so far. So, Fuck, Marry, Snap, Mr. Folletti. Hayward. Carly. And John Walker.
Oh shit!
So you are once again,
villains.
Christine. We are like super simpatico. My fifth one was I called Dirtbag Central and was largely along these lines. Though I did have Ralph Boner involved. Okay, so I've got Walker, I've got Carly, and I've got
Hayward.
Okay. Well, Walker is a kill for me at all scenarios. Every time I tried to put Walker anywhere, I was like, he's a kill.
Snap.
So I'm snapping Walker. I guess you can say you can bring him back someday, but I'm not gonna worry about it.
Carly and Hayward.
I am okay. So listen, I think
This is so unfortunate.
Hayward might be worth one tumble. Like, I think let me put it this way. He knows what he wants, and provided it's not terrible, he's not gonna like futz around. You're not gonna have any awkward moments. He's just going to like, do his thing, and provided that thing isn't incredibly lame or weird or gross, then I think you could have a decent time for one night with one Hayward.
He's also totally going to love your Jimmy Stewart impression. So
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Real winner in the sack every time. Nothing gets people more excited than a Jimmy Stewart impression. And then I do think then you're going to marry Carly. I think she's a handful, and don't get me wrong. And she's going to be a lot. And if you were worried about Io being dedicated to a cause, Maeve, like Carly is extra challenging. But at the same time, she is, of the three of them, the most decent person, which, it's a low bar, but I feel like there's a lot more to work with. If this was the 1950s, though, I could see you flipping that around and marrying Hayward just because he's always at the office. He's totally out of your hair, and you can just live your separate life at the beach house,
Yeah.
So it's not that time, though. So I feel like that's my answer.
Yeah.
Good job, Mark.
Yeah, I buy it.
I had originally excluded Carly from the list because they kept calling her a teenager, and I just felt weird about that. So.
Don't do the whole Aria Gendry bullshit again.
Yeah, I know. I think that's
like
right.
19. She's fine.
Yeah, my dirtbags were Hayward, Walker, and Ralph Boner. So we
fair.
Your list was better. Bringing in Carly was better.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Christine, for calling me on my shit and forcing me to play the game.
You're welcome.
All right. Let's get into some characters for a little bit. Now, I get to talk characters every week with Christine, and we talk characters on all the shows in some form or fashion, but I just want to start with something simple, which is the most enjoyable or satisfying character for each of you. Personally speaking, this doesn't have to be like the most important or the most realized or whatever. Just looking back on the first two shows we've gotten, who is the most enjoyable or satisfying character? Jesse, what do you have for me?
I'm going to go with the one whose theme song is still stuck in my head weeks later, Agatha Harkness. And it says a lot, both about Catherine Hahn and about the way the show executed her character arc, that I think even if you had doubts, everybody by probably the second or third episode was thinking, okay, Agnes is Agatha Harkness. We know that this is what's going to happen. There's going to be a reveal. And the way that she carried off that character and the way that she also embodied the secondary sitcom best friend while executing that was just so incredibly well done. She was just an observation that was made by someone, and I can't remember who it is. If you made it and you're listening to this podcast and you want to call me out, please do. But MCU films often don't give actors a chance to act. You're ping-ponging around, you're doing action scenes, you're in a green screen suit with ping pong balls on it. But what we do have in this show, in WandaVision, was just a chance for people to act and to carry off characters. And we found out that Elizabeth Olsen can just act the hell out of every sitcom in every era.
Yeah.
But we also found out that Kathryn Hahn, like, we already knew it from her many supporting roles on many shows, but she just took over. And every second she was on, I wanted to watch her. And even that scene in the car with Vision where they were on the edge of Westview.
Yes.
I bought it for about like an hour after I watched that episode. I was like, okay, she's not Agatha Harkness. It's something else. Like she was good enough that I bought that bullshit.
I think about her doing like lunges and leg lifts and shit by the cradle all the time. There was something about that was just so funny.
And she was also so sympathetic as a kind of as an evil character, right? I loved the fact that they gave us a backstory for her that felt not just plausible, but also worthy of our understanding. I mean, that show really nailed it. It really nailed every one of its characters. And like you said, Jesse, it gave them space to really show their acting chops.
Yeah. And I love the fact that if you contrast Agatha to Wanda, Wanda was lying to herself and Agatha was lying to Wanda. But there's also this weird scenario where if Wanda hadn't done what she did and then gone into denial about it, Agatha would have never needed to lie at all. She would have just faced her directly. It was just an easier way for her to achieve what she wanted. And yeah, I mean, I was thinking today about the initial MCU entries. You know, you think about Iron Man, which is where I start. I don't start with the Incredible Hulk because I don't remember anything about it. But you start with Iron Man, Thor, Iron Man 2. Other than Loki, those initial villains, you don't really remember them and they have no lasting impact. Whereas Agatha, you're like, I'm going to think about her. And I might even think about Agatha as a character longer than I think about WandaVision.
And you're waiting for her to come back. Like, I love the fact that they've left her tons of ways to be reintroduced and make her even more of a meteor character.
By that token, my answer is Baron Zemo.
My husband!
Yeah. What a fun villain. And like you said, Christine, like they are actually fixing the MCU villain problem with these shows. Like, I mean, Carly was still a lame MCU villain that just disappeared under the waves. Baron Zemo's so much fun. And he reminds me as a character a lot of Anya on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, who started off as, you know, just a pure wicked villain and then gets stripped of her powers, becomes a human, and then becomes this like amazingly fun character, both because the actor was just so funny and had just like perfect timing, but also it's a real kind of classic character, right? The one who, for whatever reason, doesn't give a fuck, and so will always speak the truth to everybody. It just dispenses with the white lie that, and in doing so, shows how much we depend on that in normal conversation. We'll just tell every character to their face what they think of them, and it never gets old. It's so much fun.
He's also such an indictment because he's bad, right? Of inherited privilege, right? It's like, for lovers of Downton Abbey, you're going to hate Baron Zemo, right? Because it's like, you know, it's like that sort of the fantasy that, and maybe it's like an American thing, but maybe it's also a European thing, but I think maybe especially an American thing, with sort of like, you know, love of the narratives of inherited privilege and wealth. Like, he's a real indictment of that, of our desire to see in that good, goodness, because, as effective as he is, he's effective, but he's evil.
But is he?
Is he? Yeah, I don't know, actually. I mean, he says a truth that I think the MCU is going to have to reckon with, and I hope that they realize how alarming the line is, but the line about super soldiers are basically inherently supremacists, and that's a messy problem that Marvel just created for itself, because he's not wrong.
No, you're right.
Not wrong. But, he also blows up people, which is not cool. So there's that. Who else has a character that worked for them?
So, I can't necessarily say that I enjoyed Isaiah Bradley's time on the screen because his story is so fucking painful and his life was so real to me. But I was so satisfied by his character because his story was so real and conveyed so beautifully and so simply the pain that so many Black men and Black veterans in particular feel about their complicated relationship with the United States. And I really love some of the small choices that they made for him, like the fact that when we first meet him, it's inside of his house as though he never leaves it. But then, we learned that he created this small utopia for himself in his backyard that's fenced in and nobody can see him, but it's like his way of healing throughout all these years. But then once he's seen a Black Captain America on TV, we see Isaiah on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And it's the one and only time we see him outside of his property, as though Sam's boldness freed him from a mental captivity he had created for himself, as a coping mechanism. So I loved every bit about his character, from the way he's been an example of erased Black heroes and victims who have helped advance this country, to the way his story impacted Sam, to the way Sam's story impacted him. I think he's just an absolutely beautiful character played to perfection by Carl Lumbly.
Yeah, that performance really delivered so much. He only had probably 20 minutes of screen time in the entire series, if that, and it was just incredibly memorable. Zemo has the one-liners we'll remember, but it's the emotion that Lumbly brought to that Isaiah Bradley performance that I think will. Yeah, Zemo did also have the dance moves, but I think Isaiah Bradley is something that Marvel, again, also is going to have to keep reckoning with. I'm hoping that, Spellman teased the idea of maybe that there's some possibility of returning to Isaiah's story as its own series. And I hope that Marvel takes him up on that.
That'd be great.
And I will say Bradley does a thing that we don't really get in the MCU beyond the little bit of time travel in Endgame. There's a huge gap between Captain America, the First Avenger, and Iron Man.
Yes.
Where we don't know what happens. And it would be very odd to be in this world where you invent a superhero in World War II and then nothing happens until Tony Stark invents Iron Man in 2008.
Right. We get a little bit with Ant-Man and the Wasp, obviously, with them taking out an ICBM one time, and then a brief bit of footage of Ant-Man doing what looked like war crimes in Vietnam, possibly. I'm not sure. But you're right. Isaiah's story covers a whole decade that is totally unexplained in the Marvel lore.
Yeah, and it gives some opportunity for Disney/Marvel to fill in some of that narrative and to add some flesh and add some meat to what is otherwise just sort of Steve Rogers, then the Age of Heroes.
Well, Maeve, that leaves your most satisfying or enjoyable character so far. Who do you have?
It's a real toss-up for me. Darcy, is an intellectual superhero, so I felt like I really identified with her. And I also really identify with her sort of brand of intellectual superpowers because she is driven by curiosity, but also empathy, like a kind of an antithesis to Tony Stark as an intellectual superhero who is driven by ambition rather than, communal care. But I actually think that Monica is the character that I was most satisfied by as a character in this universe in particular, for one reason. The arc of her development as a superhero tacks perfectly and directly alongside the development of her relationship with Wanda as a friend who is in need. So in other words, the development of her superpowers are woven into or rooted inside of the development of her friendship with a person who is suffering, which feel to me like, I mean, one of the great things that this whole set of series does is ask these really sort of big questions about friendship and family and community and democracy and power and whatever. But here we have this kind of small question made big about what does it mean to be a superhero to the people who care about you and need you? And to be a superhero to those people is to care for people when they are at their worst. And I think there's something really beautiful about the way her development of superpowers metaphorizes the fact that friendship is a superpower. And so I was deeply moved by that. And I would like to be that kind of friend.
It's going to be interesting to watch her, Teyonah Parris, just being so, accessible and relatable versus the kind of cold performance that Brie Larson does as Captain Marvel. It'll be interesting to watch the two of them together. Will she bring something more out of either the character or the actor? I'm not sure which one is the choice for that sort of stiff version of Captain Marvel.
Especially since she has incandescent charisma.
Oh,
yeah.
Like,
I mean, Jesse married her, so,
Yeah, he would know.
Yeah, my wife, thank you for complimenting her.
My wife.
Oh, man. I'll throw one more out, which is Vision. He was at the top of my list just because in the MCU before, no shade to Paul Bettany or the other movies, but I didn't feel like he was much of a character. Mm-hmm. When he died, it was sad, but also there were a lot of other people who had died just trying to keep him alive, and it was all very weird. And the more I think about Infinity War, the less I love all of that. But in this show, I will never forget the first time that he raised his voice to Wanda out of the confusion and fear that he felt when things were starting to fall apart, and everything that he had to do to challenge his reality, knowing the implications of that might mean the end of his existence, was very cool. It was very sad. I loved all of that. And also, like Sam Wilson, I'm a fan of his de-escalating violence policy, and he talks through some shit. I love that.
Real emotional honesty.
All right, so what about any characters that were relatively important to either show who didn't work for you? Anyone that just came up a little bit short? I'll throw one out to start. Just I want to throw out a quick one.
If you fucking say Mephisto.
No, I fucking swear to God. Although he could have been secretly Mephisto. No, it's the senator guy from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and here's why.
Yeah.
First of all, we have no idea who this guy is for like 3 or 4 episodes before we figure out that he's a senator and he's on the GRC. He's the guy who takes the shield from Sam Wilson in episode 1, and we're like, who the fuck are you? He's the guy who introduces John Walker at the end of episode 1. Who the fuck are you? I thought he was like the Department of Defense guy for some reason because he was all wrapped up in this.
Right.
Totally not the case. And instead, apparently, he runs the world government, even though he's a senator. And none of that made any sense to me. On top of that, the performance and just the actor choice in general felt okay-ish. Didn't have a lot of gravitas. And I felt just every time that he was meant to be a foil to someone that he was coming up short. And so I just want to toss that senator guy on his ass and get a different version of that. And also maybe tell me who the fuck he is, maybe a little earlier. That's kind of where I land.
I want to go in a slightly different direction and say something that might be a little controversial. Carly Morgenthau.
No, everybody. I think you might have picked the rest of our answer.
Oh wow, that's fantastic! I'm excited to hear that.
Or you picked mine.
Amazing. I mean, that's not surprising, maybe, Amanda. You and I share a lot of opinions. Well, I mean, I'm just going to say this super briefly. It is a cartoonish representation of a revolutionary, a person who, is committed to an idea of one world, one people, as she says, but can't get coherent with that ideology. The idea that revolutionaries are just angry, emotionally reactive people who want to blow shit up because things make them mad. That's an insulting and frankly, a little reactionary representation of revolutionaries. So I'm going to say I would like a better representation of grassroots organizing, maybe a little bit, a little more subtle. It doesn't have to be, a boring, documentary style representation. I just mean like something a little more nuanced.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll toss out one, kind of in a similar space to Carly, but Hayward.
Yeah. A little bit of a mustache twirler, that guy.
Yeah. And in a way that when you look back at his entire arc, he lied and he cheated and he shot at a kid. But even through all of that, he didn't really feel evil or threatening or even necessarily necessary. Necessarily necessary. I like that. But he was a person they needed to make things happen in the show. And that's the worst kind of villain. The person who just needs to be there because they had to have a way to have Vision come back. They had to have the military machines come into the Hex. But he didn't have a real connection or motivation or even really a point once the show was done. Even to the extent that once his arc was over, just extras come in and cart him off and he's done. And we might see him again, but I highly doubt it. And if we do, it'll be a little more than probably him saying things that he knows about Wanda before a better villain comes and does something to try to stop her or take her power or do whatever. But he's very much that forgettable. He was very much a TV villain. He wasn't even a movie villain. He was just a TV villain who was there to have the things happen. And then once he was done, the hero moves on with their story.
You're right.
So my response is a little out of left field. Doctor Strange did not work for me at all during WandaVision. Listen, using real world logic, like budgets, schedules, and storytelling structures, like I understand why Doctor Strange doesn't show up when Wanda casts the Hex. But by MCU logic, you guys, his ass should have shown up immediately. Like, it was not that long after Banner snapped everyone back. What the fuck was he doing? If Agatha could sense that Hex, the Sorcerer Supreme should have sensed that Hex as well, showed up and been like, I gotta fix this situation. But, storytelling. Yeah, but storytelling. But that shit did not make any sense to me at all.
And I'm sure in Doctor Strange 2, we'll get some sort of retcon where he was like Captain Marvel,
in the
he was just off the planet.
Yeah.
Right. He was in some other dimension.
Or not in this multiverse.
Yeah.
Which is just that's one of those lame storytelling things where it's like they were doing the laundry and so weren't available for having a conversation about this thing and they didn't know what was going on. And it's like, come on, like, you're the writer.
But, at the same time, it all falls apart if everybody has to show up every time, right? I mean,
That's true.
Thor: The
That's
Dark
true.
World, the world was ending and no other Avengers bothered to stop by. So
And it's also the worst MCU movie.
Yeah, that's probably
That's
true.
correct. Yeah, it is the worst.
Well, let's talk a little bit about story and theme then. What has been the most interesting idea or theme to you personally, again, not necessarily the most important to the whole world, that WandaVision and or Falcon and the Winter Soldier have explored thus far? Maeve, what do you think?
One of my favorite themes in Falcon and the Winter Soldier was something that we talked about at length in one of our episodes, and namely the superheroism of the ordinary. And part of the reason why I really love this theme is not only because I think Falcon and the Winter Soldier develop it really beautifully, all the way up until the end, with this this friendship evolving with Bucky and Sam and them helping each other out and the community coming together and that being the kind of core of the story. But when I think about that theme and then look back on WandaVision throws up this theme also as a kind of a really subtextual theme inside of it. When you think about what Wanda as a character and the universe that she's elaborating and the characters around her that are helping her recuperate from her trauma. This goes back to what I was saying about Monica, right? There is superheroism in friendship, right? That to you individually and everybody in our lives, the superheroes around us are not the people who come in with magical powers, but the person who makes you breakfast when you wake up hungover. Or, the person who gives you a call when you're having a shitty day and is like, I'm just here to listen. That's what superheroism is to most of us most of the time. And it does truly feel that way. And I think WandaVision really captures that in ways that Falcon and the Winter Soldier also captures, but in a much more kind of overt way. And so that for me was, I think, one of the more profound takeaways from these two shows together.
And I also learned this week that Kamala Harris's children's book is called Superheroes Are Everywhere. And it also works this same theme about how your mom is a superhero, your teacher is a superhero.
Well, and also that, like, yeah, exactly. A stay-at-home mom can be a superhero, right? Like, we don't need to tell these really exclusive stories about what makes people powerful and privileged.
Baron Zemo would agree with you.
Yeah, huh?
I still like the punching.
It is
here for the
fun.
punching.
Yeah. Combat has been great.
You can be a stay-at-home mom and be a puncher.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
It was explored a little bit, but I did love the part of Falcon and Winter Soldier where Sam and Sarah were just struggling financially.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is since the MCU really kicked off, everyone's been taken care of. Like, you get into the superhero fold and you're under Tony Stark's wing. You get to live in the Avengers mansion. You get to ride on the jet. You get your costumes that are always in great shape no matter what. And that was the first time we've ever seen what it's like to have any sort of real world financial consideration come into play for a character. And the fact that it happened to basically the most prominent Black American superhero at that point, I would place Falcon above War Machine in that context. But the most prominent Black American superhero has to face that issue and face it head on, not only for him, but for his family. I really like that exploration, and I hope it comes into play more, because the only other time we've seen it is with Peter Parker when he was running around in some, pajamas he dug out of a dumpster for about 6 months. But then Tony Stark comes and he's like, here's an android suit and all your problems are taken care of. And even in Spider-Man Far From Home, we got the same thing where he gets the glasses. He's got control over this global weapon system for some reason.
Very normal teenage behavior.
Very normal.
Exactly. The problems we can all relate to.
Yeah.
Been there.
And I hope that it comes into play more, especially as we get into Ms. Marvel and She-Hulk, heroes who are more down to earth and more grounded, that we see more of this sort of real world financial considerations of what, not only what it's like to be a superhero, but just what it's like to be a person.
So I think the theme that ties the two shows together very well is the idea of power corrupting people and the threat that power corrupts, right? This is something that it would be wrong to say that the MCU hasn't dealt with it, because I think the Infinity Saga really dealt with that well, which is Tony Stark's arc was always the strongest when it was dealing with the fact that he had a God complex, right? And it caused him to do things that killed a lot of people. He probably should have gone to prison.
Yeah, I mean, Ultron alone is a really big fuck up.
Yeah, Ultron, he should have gone to prison. And I will say, but they shied away from thinking about, like, maybe it's because billionaires are shielded from the justice system.
Yeah.
But these shows actually leaned into it and actually had, Zemo straight up saying there is no such thing as having power without it corrupting you. And Wanda's lived reality was that she didn't even realize how much damage she was doing to people with her power. Because she's so powerful. And I think that there was something very true about Wanda's journey in that. Like, I saw a lot of people criticizing the show being like, she was never held accountable, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, but there's a profounder truth in that, which is that she didn't even know. She's so powerful, she didn't even know. And I think that as Americans, particularly, we live lives like that, where we don't even know.
Yeah.
what we do to other people. And I think it wasn't just WandaVision. It was, that theme was continued through Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And so I think that I'm impressed by them leaning into the reality of that instead of just sort of glancing off of it like they did in the movies and then just never really dealing with what that means.
Kind of building on Amanda's point of, we don't even know the kind of power that we have sometimes. You know, for me, the most interesting theme between these two shows has been demonstrating the ripple effect of consequences for actions we didn't even think twice about when they happened on the big screen in the movies, you know? Like, from Mark's favorite character, Clint Barton.
God damn it.
You know, not empathize.
Wait till Hawkeye's a show.
Right? You know, not empathizing with the complete loss that Wanda was feeling by herself after everyone came back to the world, but the one true love in her life, to Steve not checking up on Sharon and bringing her into his on-the-run crew after Civil War, as well as not even contemplating what it would mean for a Black man to carry the mantle of Captain America after living through the fucking civil rights movement. Like, Steve,
Oh, man.
you know, like, how many of us actually thought about Sharon after Civil War? Who here thought about her after Civil War?
Not me.
Nope.
Didn't think about her much
not
in
at
the
all.
movie.
Exactly. Exactly. And I don't think we were supposed to, but I love the fact that they've used these shows to expose some of the mistakes that we didn't even know were there by some of the major characters in the movies.
And even what Baron Zemo pointed out, which is the Avengers oversaw the destruction of an entire country based on their own choices. Like, this was stuff that, you know, Tony Stark just decided on his own, that the Avengers went along with, that ended up with potentially hundreds of thousands of dead, an entire country gone, and none of them visited the memorial. They couldn't even be bothered to show up in the year since that happened because they were too busy doing whatever else, fighting the aliens.
Kicking ass.
Exactly.
Thanks, Tony.
Well, there are real world references that are made inside these shows to exactly that. The name of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier episode, "The World is Watching," is a slogan from Vietnam War protests. The world is watching to remind Americans, as well as everybody else, but especially to remind Americans that the power you have is being used for ill. So, you know, this is where the idea of superheroes and superpowers lines up with the problematic of America being a superpower, right? What are the consequences of superpowered nations? Well, that is the crushing of other nations and violence in the name of the maintenance of imperial power. It's really important that episode is called that, I think, because even though the representation of revolutionaries is cartoonish in this show, and, you know, it's a little disappointing for that, nonetheless, the show is trying to grapple with those larger real world consequences of, you know, Americans and Europeans thinking of themselves as people who are just trotting around the world bringing civility, when in fact what they're doing is bringing violence.
I'll throw one other one in there for me, which is these two shows have really asked questions of its characters about how far are they willing to go for what they believe in. They test the shit out of everybody. Wanda is, you know, the whole series is a question of how far she's willing to go to build the fake life of her dreams, which is pretty exciting and terrifying. On the flip side, like I said in my favorite character section, Vision has to ask himself how far he's willing to go to challenge her fake bullshit, which is terrifying in its own right for him. Sam literally is willing to die for his commitment to de-escalation in combat with Carly, which is a pretty powerful moment that I feel is a touch overlooked when people are analyzing the series. Zemo is entirely committed to his cause, but also walks short of it when he refuses to take any violent action against Bucky at the end, which is very interesting to me. And so on and so on. I just feel like most of these characters are really put to test of their beliefs. Maybe in the case of Carly, it's a little bit cartoonish, but she's pushed as well. And it just feels like whether they're for good or for ill, there's a question of really testing characters in a way that the movies don't always have time to do, or to keep raising the stakes because they have 6 episodes or 8 episodes or 10 episodes to do this with. So I hope that we see more of that in the future. And now I think it's time to speak of the future. Our entire Fuck, Marry, Snap segment is basically given to us by Christine. So thank you, Christine, for that incredibly enjoyable half an hour of my life that I would like to extend. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to make you guys play this a lot more in the future. But I want to give other folks also a chance to put your imprint on what we're going to talk about here. So let's look to the future. Who has a question for us about where the MCU TV project is going?
So from the previews, we've seen that Loki is going to be a Doctor Who style time traveler, like going through historical events. Apparently adding the wrinkle that he will be impersonating historical figures because he's a shapeshifter. So my question for everybody was, what historical person or era or event do you most hope to see Loki inhabit on this show? And I'm going to start with Christine.
I'm such an asshole. I'm just like, I would love to see Tom Hiddleston try to play Harriet Tubman or like some shit like that. You know what I mean? Like some impossible. That's amazing. Like some impossible role where I'm just like, yes, y'all make Tom Hiddleston earn this paycheck, please.
Does that mean it's like Quantum Leap where when he looks in the mirror, it's Harriet Tubman, but he's still Tom Hiddleston? Or are you looking for...
Because he's a shapeshifter.
Sure.
Oh, right, fair,
which is the line of the episode. Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh, that's so dark.
That's amazing.
I'm sorry. I also had a conversation today about Drag Race, and I like went on about Simone's Harriet Tubman. So like Harriet's been on my mind today. Sorry.
What else? Who else has one for Amanda?
All right. I want to see him be Eric the Red.
Why?
Because I want to see Tom Hiddleston have to go back and pretend to be the leader of these dirt-stained savages who worship them as gods.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
That's pretty good. Well, I'll throw one out there. I'm into something with the Cuban Missile Crisis. I want to see Tom Hiddleston have to talk down the Soviets and the Americans to prevent the end of the world. I feel like the Cuban Missile Crisis could be one of those nexus events in any timeline where most of the time it goes bad and everything is over. And so correcting that is like really essential. And it would just be hilarious to watch him running back and forth and trying to keep us all from killing ourselves. So that's kind of what I'm hoping to see.
Bobby Kennedy.
Oh, God. Do you think they're going to do those terrible, like, Kennedy accents like it's The Simpsons or whatever?
Oh, my God.
Now I hope so.
He did sound like that, though.
I mean, I kind of feel like, I don't know. I feel like my answer is the lamest, guys. I don't know. I just kind of feel like Loki is kind of a Napoleon. So I kind of want him to like play Napoleon, right? And, you know, how do we like ward off the beginning of the imperial problem in Europe that then produces World War I and World War II? Like, you know, you make Napoleon like give up somewhere early, which he definitely doesn't want to do because Loki is kind of a Napoleon. You know, he is like, all I want is power.
It would be a lot of short jokes.
He isn't that short, though, right? Isn't Napoleon not actually short? It's just...
No, that was just a thing his enemies made up about him.
French are brutal, man.
So my answer is actually somewhat close to yours, maybe, but in a different direction. It's French, anyway. I think it would be cool, and probably one of the most iconically Loki moments in all of history was when the Marquis de Sade hung out the window of the Bastille and encouraged people to storm it. He was being imprisoned there at the time. I think that would be extremely funny, watching Loki be the Marquis de Sade being like, storm this place, they're killing prisoners in here, I swear.
The speech would be magnificent.
It would be truly
It would be so funny. And I don't think they'd ever do it because obviously the Marquis de Sade has a reputation that's about things other than that particularly baller troll moment in history.
Yeah.
But it was one of the trollish, most impish, like trickster moments in history. It's also apocryphal, but I choose to believe it happened. And I would love to see Loki, Tom Hiddleston, do it.
And there's also all those Marquis de Sade stories, like, you know, that he could kind of embody along the way, like the guy who like fills his prison with shit and has to like write things on the wall and shit. I feel like, you know, there's like a lot of space there for him having to do things he definitely doesn't want to do, which I'm here for.
By the way, I just want to have a full roundtable prediction. How many episodes in before we get an Owen Wilson impression by Tom Hiddleston?
Oh, man.
3.
I'm with Amanda. Yeah.
Okay.
1.
Yeah.
1.
Yeah.
Yeah, opening episode. If he's going to do it, it's going to be in the first episode.
Owen Wilson is like killing that trailer, though.
Yeah, he's really good. But
he's hilarious.
I'm gonna say 2.
Okay.
I'll pick the midpoint.
All right, we'll see where we land on that.
Okay.
Maeve, you were talking about shit on the wall. You got a question that
let's talk about let's just talk about some shit some more. I mean, I'm a scholarly type. Emphasis on type more than scholarly. So I think a lot about themes and ideas. I want to know what you guys think. What are some of those big themes, ideas, big questions that you hope or expect, but maybe hope Loki is going to carry forward from WandaVision or Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
I mean, I think a continuation, the 2 seasons we've seen so far, 2 series we've seen so far are about really examining, the problems of superheroes and the amount of power they have and how corrupting it is. And I think that it would be cool to see them continue that theme forward, especially with Loki, a character who historically has used his godlike powers to do terrible things. And is this a redemption story for him or not? But also, like, you have an opportunity to kind of comment on Doctor Who, a show I love, don't get me wrong, but like there are real problems with the concept of the Doctor and like how much power he also has, and like you could do some cool shit there.
I'm actually going to steal an observation Christine made earlier in this episode. She's just waving her fists at me.
Because I wanted to build on my previous answer, but I think you're going to do it. So go ahead, Jesse.
Well, that's good. I think he's probably going to answer for me too. So that'll be a nice tight wrap up to this.
Thief.
I think I was also going to go after Christine's point from earlier. So Jesse, take it away.
But the idea of consequences.
Oh my God, that's literally what I wrote down. Anyway.
Yes.
Just like men to take a woman's idea
Absolutely.
and claim it. Go ahead.
snap.
I'm kidding. Go ahead.
So this was an idea that I just came up with like 15 seconds ago, all on my own. But again, rewatching the Thor movies, especially the first 2, although I try not to rewatch Dark World, thinking about the core Avengers, Thor's the only one who implicates other worlds, aliens, powers that we don't understand, that can't be traced back to a decision that a human being made.
Mm-hmm.
And the various things that have happened in Thor, in the Thor canon, the Thor storyline, that have had an impact on Earth, but that have never really been addressed, including just the fact that in the Avengers storyline, it's just sort of been accepted that Thor is who he is. Mm. And we've never really even gotten it addressed. Like, Thor is a historical / mythological figure in and of himself, as is Loki. And so this is the equivalent of like Zeus showing up on Earth
Mm-hmm.
or Mars showing up.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's being kind of like, okay, well, fought some aliens. Shit was cool. Like, I'm going to buy the t-shirt now. And so kind of exploring that a little bit more. And hopefully I didn't bite Christine's entire answer so she can expand on that. But that idea.
She looks disappointed in you, but whatever.
Yeah.
It's okay.
No, never disappointed in Jesse, ever. Mark occasionally, but never Jesse.
That's fair. All right then, Jesse, take us home. What's your question for the group?
Okay. If you could make any genre of show in the MCU with any character or combination of characters, and it doesn't have to be characters we've already seen on screen, what would you make?
So I want a show that's like Breaking Bad, but in Madripoor.
Amazing.
And it's Sharon's origin story as the power broker. Because like Sharon started off good, just like Walter White, but then she just gets worse and worse as she tries to survive in Madripoor. But here's the thing. Sharon is actually Jessie in the show, and the power broker is her tutor. And the series ends with the power broker retiring and giving Sharon the mantle because the power broker is the MCU's Dread Pirate Roberts.
Wow.
That's awesome.
I like that.
I would
Marvel
watch that
pay
show.
me. Feige pay me.
Yeah, 100%.
I'd watch.
I just want a
the fuck out of
Madripoor show.
I'd watch the fuck out of that.
Yeah, that
Yep,
sounds amazing.
Correct.
Sharon doesn't even need to be in it. I just want to see a Madripoor show. But I have to say, I loved the John Wickness of Sharon, just straight up assassinating people, at the shipyards or whatever. I want to see more of that. I want to see that Sharon, because you very, very, very rarely see a woman portrayed in that manner. And
Being a full-on ninja. Yeah.
Yes, I live for it.
Yeah.
Rage, girl,
yeah.
rage.
So much rage and just justified rage. And also they're all crap at fighting. And she's right? That was the weird thing about that scene is a lot of them were just kind of shitty fighters. And she was a badass.
See, I thought that they were good. I want her to go up against really good fighters and kill them.
Murder them. See, I'm not the only one who wants to murder here.
Right, Sharon
not
Carter.
the only one who wants to see murder.
Yeah, I think I might surprise some of you with this answer because I normally
You want a
hate-
Mephisto show.
Yes, I want a
Yeah,
Mephisto. I want a show about Mephisto. I bet because I do think the first season of Glee was pretty good, and I would like a musical MCU show
What?
This is way worse than fucking
featuring
Mephisto.
Dazzler. No,
You
wait,
are,
this-
you are not the man I've
Also,
been
Mark's
with.
lying.
I
It's
am literally serious. I want dance fights, face-offs. The Dazzler versus the Enchantress would be the show, right? The Enchantress would be this rogue Asgardian who has this power.
West Side Story, but the MCU. When you're a jet.
No, girl, it's Buffy all over again.
Yeah.
It's Buffy all over again.
But they literally do battle with song and dance because Dazzler's powers are all these light-based powers, and
That's
she's a
awesome.
disco singer in the comics, and then you have the Enchantress, and so I think you could do some really wild shit for the genre of musicals and really bring it forward. This would not be a 10-episode show, or it would get old quick, but I think for a 6-episode show, and I will pitch you my Dazzler, Lizzo.
Yes.
well, then, yes, I'm in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're
you
just-
brought it
Okay,
up.
see, I'm actually, it's like a
Tutorial
pretty
icon,
fucking
I'm
great
in.
idea, right? And if Taylor Swift is the Enchantress, because everyone casts her as
now
Dazzler,
I'm
fuck
out.
that.
Nah.
But she's the bad guy.
Lizzo gets to defeat Taylor Swift. Are you out for that? You don't want that?
We're all here for that. That has to be a thing.
Yeah. Anyway, that would be fine for me, but that was my genre.
As long as they don't dress like cats.
Oh my God.
Why would they dress like cats? Because they wanted to emulate the worst musical ever made? No,
Taylor,
we're not doing that.
Taylor Swift
Taylor
is a cat.
Swift was in Cats.
Was she really? Oh my God.
Yes.
Well, then keep her away from my musical project. She's bad luck.
This is going interesting places.
But Agatha could be brought back too. Just put it out.
Yes, but not as a
yes.
cat.
No, not as a cat.
Yeah.
Guys, I wrote a log line for this show. I was really excited about this idea. I was like, this question is the awesomest question. Okay, so I'm going to read you the first clause, and you have to guess who my characters are.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Raised to be ruthless killing machines by a murderous space tyrant.
Oh, the Thanos' children.
Yes!
Yeah.
Nebula and
Wow.
Gamora are sisters about to get up close and personal with how little they have in common when the Nova Corps hire them as their newest intergalactic brand ambassadors. Supernatural meets the BBC's classic military comedy All Along the Watchtower in this new, hilarious office comedy family dramedy from the MCU.
Amazing.
Jesus.
So good.
That's really good.
It's the odd couple in space.
Yes!
Oh.
Oh my God, that is a better comp. Oh my God, yes. So anyway, if the MCU is listening, I really think a Nebula Gamora sister dramedy would be pretty fucking great.
Yeah.
So wait, but 2023 Nebula with 2018 Gamora?
Yeah, that
That'd be
that
so
feels good to me.
I love
Yeah,
it.
right? It'd be hilarious because they, the fact that they just can't understand each other would, result in all this hilarious comedy. And yet, because they share this troubled past, they would also really, sort of get each other and we would get them and it would be, heartwarming. And yet,
Who would play the wacky neighbor?
Agatha Harkness again.
What?
What about Rocket?
Yeah, Rocket would be pretty good. He comes in and has his little catchphrases.
or Groot,
Yeah. Yeah, I am Groot is the catchphrase of the wacky neighbor.
And you know what? This show could have Flurkins on it, and I think we're all here for another Flurkin character, right?
Mm-hmm.
100%. This show can have cats.
Oh, yeah. And then not in a bad way. Not in a sad, pathetic, bad comedy, bad, musical, sad musical way.
Okay, I have mine. So I am sad that they have not done a Sherlock Holmes style murder mystery genre in the MCU yet, and because I feel like that's everybody's favorite. Everyone likes Law and Order. Everyone that's like
Knives Out type shit.
Yeah, that's like 80% of CBS, and we all love it, right? So I think they should do a murder mystery, a detective show, and I think that your Sherlock Holmes is Vision and your Dr. Watson is Bucky.
What? What? Explain yourself, please.
Wait, explain Bucky.
Explain Vision.
First of all, Vision is obviously Sherlock Holmes.
Jimmy Woo is Sherlock Holmes. Whatever.
No. Sherlock Holmes is like somebody who's a little bit not relating to human people very well because he's such a brainiac. True. His brain is literally a fucking computer, right?
Fair.
But and also a cocaine addict.
Yeah, he's got to be a drug addict. I feel like actually maybe Vision is Watson.
No. The Watson has to be the kind
sub.
of like normal person who invites us into Sherlock's story, right? They're the normie, and why Bucky? Because I want to see Sebastian Stan on screen more.
Yeah. Excellent. It also says a lot about you, Amanda.
Yeah.
Pre-car accident, Doctor Strange 100% was a coke guy.
Oh, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. You know what? Bucky can be Mrs. What's her name who runs the house.
But Benedict Cumberbatch has already played Sherlock.
He's already
Holmes.
Sherlock.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he can't. This would be too meta. I mean, listen, when they had that moment between when Doctor Strange and Tony Stark had that moment about do you concur? I was like, wait a second, wasn't that a scene from one of the Sherlock Holmeses? It just seemed like a Sherlock Holmes reference at one point.
What was because there were two Sherlock Holmeses talking to each other.
Yeah. Jesse, what's your answer?
All right, my idea. The one thing that the MCU is missing is just straight up comedy. So here's what I want. A failed supervillain who has to go back to either his hometown or his old job, Eastbound and Down style.
Oh, man.
And my villain is, and we've talked about this on the show before, Mark and I have, Paste Pot Pete / the Trapster. Who is
that?
He's a terrible villain.
He's Jesse's Mephisto.
Yeah.
Wait, does Jesse see
Paste Pot Pete everywhere he goes? Yes.
Everywhere he goes?
Paste Pot Pete.
Paste Pot Pete. Got it. Paste Pot Pete.
Oh, I thought you said Piss Pot Pete. I'm so confused. What is
a different villain?
Yep.
I was like, I didn't know Marvel named people Piss Pot Pete.
I'm thinking of a child running up to a newsstand in 1962 Brooklyn, just grabbing Piss Pot Pete off the shelf.
Oh God!
So the background of Paste Pot Pete is not Piss Pot Pete, but Paste Pot Pete. Paste Pot Pete. He was a failed inventor who basically invented one thing, which was a very strong glue. And that's it. So he just used the glue to commit crime. He would glue people to the wall and then he would rob a bank.
Sounds really effective. So.
I mean, you get caught for one crime, you get caught for all of them. I mean, this is too strong of an MO.
Right.
Pun intended.
The lawyer puts the kibosh on Paste Pot Pete.
So the idea being that he was this failed villain who then has to go back to his regular life, and it's just a series of jokes about all the people who kicked his ass.
And add to it, Goodfellas, gloss, he's in the witness protection program.
Yeah. And so it's a mix between him trying to still live up to what he thought he would be, which he never was and never will be. And also him getting offended when people are like, oh yeah, thinking about all the great villains, thinking about Ultron and Thanos. And
wait, what did he think he was gonna be? He thought he was gonna be like a supervillain.
Yeah, so he was like the guy. If you look him up, he's got the full-on supervillain costume, kind of, and he's got 2 glue guns, and he shoots the glue at people.
That's amazing.
Does the glue look as bad as I think it might look in terms of suggestiveness?
I mean, yes. Like, the man shot white glue from his guns.
Oh, no. He's going to be the next iteration of fuck, marry, snap.
He also wears a really weird hat, and he's got like a bow. He looks like a clown meets a guy taking a nap. He's got like some kind of like nap cap on, night before Christmas kind of cap. And is that this is the one you're talking about? This guy in the weird green outfit?
Yeah, and they've redone him over the years, but that his initial appearance was like the Joker meets Scrooge.
Oh, see there we go. Yeah, the little 19th century. I'm taking a nap cap.
Yeah, but just like that kind of thing, just staff it. Like just put on like every great comedic actor you can find. Have just like Marvel's been around for how many decades now? How many terrible villains do they have that will never see the light of day in a movie? And they can be his friends. They can be a support group. They can be the people he's secretly communicating with outside of his
pub.
Support group comedy would be hilarious for the shitty villains.
Yeah, and see how many ways this could go?
This is great. See, and I kind of like the idea of him being in witness protection program, like Amanda said, because then you could bring back Jimmy Woo, who is also very funny and will totally fit well with the comedy. But I'm starting to like this villain pub / support group idea a little bit more.
It could be like Cheers. So it doesn't have to, it could be like, you all hang out at a local pub and like get, it's funny. It's like a good, funny sitcom, but God, that's good.
Jesse,
that's
these
good.
network execs have totally run away with your idea and turned it into something else entirely.
I know. And it's like, it's just going to be a vehicle for, I don't know, like Ray Romano's comeback. Who knows?
Oh, God. Is he Paste Pot Pete?
I don't know. I mean, I had like, my idea is just to put Danny McBride in the role. Like, let's just make it Eastbound and Down.
Yeah. That's a good call.
Yeah.
Well, this was a blast, you guys. I can't thank you enough for making the time to get together all in one shot for our epic crossover. Let's talk about where people can find you. Christine, where can people find and follow you?
People can find and follow me on Twitter and Instagram at KippensK. And you could also catch me on my podcast called I'm Gonna Need More Wine.
Jesse, where can people find and follow you?
People can find me on twitter.com, on the internet, or apps on your mobile device at Jesse L. Taylor, all one word.
Maeve Adams, Dr. A, where can people find you?
People can become one of the 200 and something odd followers I have on Twitter at Maeve Adams, or you can read any academic thing I have ever written at academia.edu.
And Amanda, where can people find and follow you?
I write for salon.com. I'm also on twitter.com at Amanda Marcotte.
The .coms are cracking me up, you guys. I'm also on twitter.com. You can find me at Mark Folletti. That's M-A-R-C, F like Frank, A-L-E-T-T-I. Marvelous TV Club has so much more in store for you in May. Like I mentioned, our interview with Abraham Reisman should be out next week, and we have other extremely exciting guests that are hot on his heels. Stay tuned, and in the meantime, leave us some 5-star reviews with your own Fuck, Marry, Snaps for us for our next crossover event. Until then, apparently, I need to go see if Tyler Hayward is available.
Good job, Mark. Good job.